Hi, everybody. This is Jennifer Lee Levitz with Unleash the Power of Age. We're on a podcast today, and I have a very special guest. Her name is Michelle Elix. Michelle is with the Registry of Motor Vehicles, and she runs several important workshops and seminars, would you call them?
Yes.
And she's here today mostly to relate to seniors, of course. Hi, Michelle. Welcome.
Well,
thank you. I'm so glad we finally got you.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Jennifer. Thank you.
Really? The main program we want to discuss today is what is about the Real ID.
That's right. That's right. As you know, the Registry of Motor Vehicles began issuing last year, so March of 2018, we began issuing this federally compliant credential. And, you know, when I say credential, it can take the form of either a driver's license or a Massachusetts ID card. So part of the Homeland Security Act is this thing called the Real ID Act.
Okay.
And the Real ID Act was created, believe it or not, back in 2005 by the Congress of 2005, right?
My
So it's been around for quite a while. But the important date to really keep in mind, Jennifer, is October 1st, 2020, because on October 1st of the year 2020, the only way a person will be able to board an airplane to fly within the United States is by showing TSA either a Real ID compliant credential or a valid passport or a military ID, Department of Defense issued military ID. So that's probably the biggest, most important piece to remember is that day, October 1st, 2020. If people plan on flying within the U.S., they are going to need this thing called a Real ID. And we're excited that we're able to issue. In fact, we've been issuing Real IDs for more than a year now. Because we do anticipate quite a rush probably next, as you can imagine, late summer of next year, September. It's going to be kind of busy for us, right? So that's coming down the pike. The other scenario where someone will need to have a Real ID or a valid passport is at secure federal office buildings.
Such
as a federal courthouse,
Okay.
many of the Social Security Administration buildings have a
Really?
security desk at the entrance. So really, any federal office building that has a security desk at the entrance, the only way a person will be able to enter that building, again, starting October 1st, 2020, is by showing security a Real ID or a valid passport or a military ID.
Or a military
Yeah.
ID.
So, and we have that all this information is spelled out very clearly on our website, Jennifer, which is mass.gov.
Is it MA or?
MASS.
It is MASS.
MASS.gov
.gov
/
/
RMV.
Okay.
And then if somebody wants specific information just on the Real ID, there's another site they could go to as well, which is really helpful, and it's mass.gov / ID. So it's more the policy behind the Real ID Act, and it's the Office of Homeland Security links. So the ID website really is focused on that part of it. The registry side of that website is where a person could even begin to do a transaction. If someone was interested in renewing their driver's license or renewing their Massachusetts ID
Can be done
card.
online?
Maybe.
Maybe a
Depending,
few
right?
people can do that.
Depending on, first of all, if a person is interested in renewing their driver's license online, they may be eligible depending on how old the photo is, whether or not they renewed online the last time or the previous time. So right now, and the other thing is, you would not be able to renew your license online if you want to get the real ID. If you're interested in getting a real ID, that has to be done in person at either a Registry of Motor Vehicles service center or at a participating AAA office.
Okay.
So you can get yourself a real ID at either place, the registry or AAA.
There are still people who don't like to do things online. Is there a phone number to get information?
Sure, we
Terrific.
have a wonderful contact center, and we've got lots of reps standing by. However, you cannot renew a driver's license, nor can you renew an ID card over the phone.
No, but you could find out
You
about it.
sure can.
over
You
the
sure
phone.
can. You're right. You're right. You can renew your vehicle's registration, though, over the phone. We are able, yeah, you can do it through the mail, by phone, or in person, or online. Again, just the vehicle registration. But for license renewals, that has to be done either in person or online. Now, here's one thing I have to throw into as well. Beginning at age 75, a person will no longer be able to renew their driver's license online because that once we turn 75 here in Massachusetts, every time our license expires, which is every 5 years, we must come in person and take an eye test, and pass an eye test. So that's the other thing. Yes, right. That's what Massachusetts policy requires.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was something you said a few moments ago about being able to renew a driver's license online, but it seems to me, now this is leading up to a question, that these are not inexpensive things to do, and that why would you do one that's going to have to be redone before the end of next year? So I guess that it's expensive, and you can tell me how expensive it is.
Okay, sure. So in order to the cost to renew a driver's license here in Massachusetts is $50.
Okay.
And you've got that driver's license for 5 years.
Okay.
So every 5 years, you have to pay $50 to renew the driver's license.
Not bad.
Yeah, for a Massachusetts ID card, now that's half the cost of what a driver's license costs. So to renew or to even apply for a Massachusetts ID card, it costs $25.
Okay.
So again, you've got that for 5 years. So those are the costs associated with renewing. Now, here's a scenario, and I get a lot of questions about this. Let's say a person just renewed her driver's license back in 2018. Okay. So 2 years ago, last year, renewed their driver's license. Excuse me. And at the time, they weren't sure whether they wanted the real ID or not. So they maintained and kept their standard level of credential, renewed it, and they've got it for 5 years. And today they decide, I want to get that real ID, but I'm not eligible to renew it anytime soon, right? Because you've got when we issue a driver's license. Well, yeah, because you're not able to renew your driver's license until 12 months prior to the expiration date, right?
Didn't know.
Yeah, so you have to, so
Whoa,
you may not be eligible to renew because if you just renewed it last year, you've got that license for 5 years, so it won't expire technically until 2023, right? So if you want the real ID, you can absolutely come on in and get that real ID, But all we can do is replace your standard. With that, you'll come in and do what's called a replacement. You won't be eligible to renew yet because, again, your license isn't going to expire for about 3 years. But you can come in. If you want the Real ID today
Okay.
and you're not eligible at any time to renew within the next 12 months, we can replace your standard driver's license with a Real ID driver's license, and that's going to cost a $25 replacement fee. Okay? So that's the only caveat to, when we talk about fees. Yes, you can certainly, when you renew your driver's license, you can turn it into a Real ID and just pay the renewal fee, which is $50. That's if you're eligible to renew anytime soon.
I'm still flabbergasted by that. I had this imagined thing that, well, you could just go in and get a license whenever you wanted to do it.
Right. Now,
oh my
now,
God.
well, you cannot go in and renew anytime you want. You have to be within that renewal window, which is 12 months prior to the expiration date.
Okay, well,
yeah,
we've learned
so there
something
you go.
unexpected. Maybe some more. Here we go. All right, so Real ID. Boy, all kinds of things about federal government and the Homeland Security are swimming through my brain, and how this changes just the raggedy old Massachusetts driver's license. Now it has to be federally approved in some way? What is that?
If a person wants to get that federally compliant credential called the Real ID, and so to look at your driver's license, if it is a Real ID federally compliant driver's license, you'll see there's a little white star in the top right-hand corner. So that tells security that, yes, this is a federally compliant credential. This person has provided extra documentation in order to get that Real ID.
Okay.
So that is where this wonderful checklist that the registry produced, our training department put together a really useful, I think, checklist that I presented at the Rose Baker Senior Center, and we did a Real ID workshop there recently, and everyone got a checklist, and that really helps you identify which document you need in order to renew, because there are, based on the Real ID Act, there are some new requirements, Jennifer, that are they're required in order to renew a person's driver's license.
Let's go through. Can we go through them verbally, not just visually?
Sure. So first of all, in order to renew a driver's license now, a person must prove that he or she is lawfully present here in the United States. Okay. So we all need to prove, if we want to apply for a driver's license or apply for a Massachusetts ID card, or even if we currently hold a driver's license or an ID card and I want to renew it, I must prove lawful presence and date of birth one time, okay? And so the way one does that is the Real ID Act has identified more than 11 documents that a person could use. You only have to use one, but there are 11 to choose from. So, for instance, a valid U.S. passport, a valid U.S. passport card, an original U.S. birth certificate, a consular report of birth abroad, a green card, otherwise known as a permanent resident card, a temporary stamp in a foreign passport, an employment authorization document, a refugee travel document, and so you can, the list is quite extensive, a certificate of naturalization, a certificate of citizenship. So this checklist, like I said, it lists all of the documents a person could choose from in order to prove lawful presence.
I actually heard of a woman who ran into a problem because her naturalization papers had her name spelled differently.
Yes. Okay.
What can someone do about something like that?
That's a good question. Okay, so there, in that situation, If the name on your lawful presence document does not match your current name, in order to get a real ID, you do have to prove that you have changed your name. So, right. So again, the Real ID Act requires that. So if you come into the registry or to AAA and you hand us let's say a birth certificate that may show your maiden name, but since then you've changed your name. And if you want the Real ID, you will have to provide a marriage certificate that was issued by the municipality. You may have to provide a divorce decree, because if there's a series of name changes, each name change must be proven if you want the Real ID. A court document would also suffice. So if I change my name from Michelle to Marianne, and I want the Real ID, I would have to show that court document that proves I changed my name.
That's
so
amazing.
that's if you want the Real ID. But keep in mind, not everybody is going to want a Real ID. Folks that do not plan on flying, folks that have no need to go into a federal office building, well, they don't need a Real ID. Or people who have a passport already and they intend on keeping that passport valid. Well, you don't need a Real ID. So that's the thing. So we want people to remember that the Real ID is not required of everyone. It all depends on what a person's plans are after October 1st, 2020. So if they plan on flying within the U.S. and they don't have a passport, that's the person that's going to need a Real ID. Okay. But if they don't plan on flying, and if they don't have any need to get into a federal office building, they may never need a Real ID.
Wow.
Okay, so that's the thing, and that's why some folks that come to the registry in order to renew their driver's license, if they haven't had the chance to hear about the Real ID or listen to your program or come to a community center and learn about the Real ID, they have no idea whether or not they want the Real ID.
Right.
They have to do some homework first, and that's why we're really thankful for the opportunity to talk to you and to spread the word about how to learn more about the Real ID.
Well, we, at the Rose Baker Senior Center, we really try to cover all the bases. Lucy Sheehan, our executive director, we love Lucy.
Oh, she's great.
Isn't she great?
Wonderful.
I know.
She's invited me back a couple times, so we've been able to reach so many residents.
Really, she likes to make sure that everyone has all the information they need to be able to live the fullest life that we can.
Right. In addition to the Real ID workshops, I do a program, the registry offers a program called Shifting Gears, and it's all about older driver safety. And when you look at driver fitness, it really has so much to do with how we age and human development and what happens. And unfortunately, around the age of 75, the crash rate begins to increase for older drivers. And up until age 75, older drivers have a relatively low crash rate, and that's a good thing. But then due to functional impairments and changes in vision and maybe a slower reaction time and a few other things thrown into the mix, maybe some other medical conditions or medications. A lot of factors come into play, but around the age of 75 is when the crash rate begins to increase. So it's important to think about driver fitness, driver safety, and we talk a lot about what some of the warning signs of unsafe driving are, how to keep yourself safe on the road, how to regulate your driving, how to think about not driving, the whole driving conversation.
Oh, God, I can't imagine.
Yeah,
oh, my
right?
God.
But, we plan for everything, don't we, in life? But we do need to plan for not driving, because I believe it was MIT and AAA and maybe AARP, but I'm not sure about AARP, so don't quote me on that one. But MIT and AAA have come up with some research that shows that we will most likely live 7 to 10 years longer than we're safe to drive. So and here in Massachusetts, the license holder is responsible for making sure he and he or she is safe to operate. So it's really all the
Interesting.
liability falls on the license holder.
Oh, my
So I think
goodness.
it's really important. It's part of the driving conversation is, what am I going to do when I stop driving? How am I going to get around? What's available in my community? And that's where the Rose Baker Center comes in.
There you go. I'll make last call, Jen. You can get on. We're taking the next cutoff to the to Route 114. We are going to the registry, and the senior bus goes once a month, the last Friday of the month. With a wheelchair, we can hold 6 people. Without a wheelchair, we can hold 8 people.
Yes, the reason I'm on the bus today is to get my driver's license renewed. I like to drive local in Gloucester and surrounding areas, but not on 128. For me, to be able to take this bus, this opportunity, I think it's a wonderful thing. God bless them, whoever thought of this idea.
I'm very fortunate. I always have a good group of people and very interesting people to talk to.
I know. Everybody on this bus has a story.
Oh, yeah. You have a lot to learn from them.
Yes, I've been waiting a couple years. I can't get my medication. I can't say who I am because I don't have an ID to prove who I am. And that's why it's very important, and I'm very thankful.
Hello, my name's Marilyn, and I'm going up to get a replacement, the real ID, to replace my other ID. It will cover more.
I just got word that I can get my license. And at the same time, I got word that the Rose Baker Center goes to the registry on the last Friday of every month. So that's why I'm here. I'm going to renew my license and be able to drive myself.
It's coming up now.
There's the registry of motor vehicles across the parking lot. Way over on the left.
How was it?
Easy.
Easy. It's not like the olden days.
She gave me a
great experience.
Was it good?
I just want to say thank you to Leanne for driving us up. She dropped us right at the door and came back and picked us right up at the door.
All in all, was a quick, great trip. Lots of fun meeting new people on the bus. Thank you.
And I'm having a wonderful time speaking with ladies that I've never met before, but I hope to see in the future. Thank you very much.
I found the whole experience very well organized.
Have the form filled out. If you have a computer, you can do that. A lot of us don't. But Rose Baker Center will help you, and it makes it so much quicker and easier.
So how do you think the bus driver did?
She did super.
Absolutely the best.
Good.
Scale of 1 to 10, you're right off the charts.
Does that say it all?
That says it all. Bus 257 is now back at the senior center.
So driving is part of the piece, but mobility, I think, is really what's important.
Sure, you want to be able
right?
to still.
Right.
We just had our brain fitness fair today at Rose Baker, and all of that it relates to driving. Your brain has to be fit. You have to be physically fit. You have to be mentally,
You are so right.
emotionally. You have to be
Right.
well in order to be able to drive.
So true. That's so true.
When you were talking about what happens to people over 75, one of the things that occurred to me is that we shrink. You know, we can't see over the hood as well as we used to.
Oh,
We
my
can't reach
goodness.
the pedals the way we
I know
used
how
to.
dangerous that can be.
It can.
But there's maybe some simple fixes as well. You know, it's nice that the auto manufacturers now make driver's seats that not only move forward and backward, right, but up,
They go up.
down. I think there's a wedge-shaped driving cushion that's available that someone could purchase in order to get up a little higher. A Car Fit is a wonderful
I was just going to say,
program.
do you know about
That's
CarFit? Oh, you
fabulous.
you tell it. You
CarFit
tell it.
is wonderful. CarFit is a program, and it's a partnership between
Triad.
Yeah,
It's part of Triad.
It is, and it's comes from research by Occupational Therapy Association, and I know AAA has been really involved in it. But CarFit is a program.
It's the sheriffs and the fire departments and the police departments that sponsor a triad organization in a community. And one of their programs is CarFit, F-I-T. And
You drive right to the program,
you
right?
go right there.
And
I've
there
done
are
it.
Text me too, and they made such good suggestions.
Right.
Minor changes to the angle of your side mirrors, angling the driver's seat, tilting the steering wheel a certain way. I loved that program. It's a
Sure.
great program,
It's free.
and it's free.
And it's
right?
free.
Right.
So
CarFit.
through your local, you can find out about it through your local police or fire department or your senior center. Not all senior centers have Triad. We do at Rose Baker. Our Triad is newly, again, very active. And it's a terrific way to ensure that you're driving well, fit, that you're fit to drive, and that your car fits you.
That's key.
It
That
was
is key.
it was a lovely thing to do. I'm very glad that I did it.
I'm so glad you went. I enjoyed it too. I went to one, not in Gloucester, but in another, closer to my town, and it was at one of the local hospitals right in the parking lot. So it was great. And that reminds me, if I could just mention that if a person no longer drives, well, and if it's really important that everyone has some form of identification, right? So if a person no longer drives, they certainly could turn that driver's license into a Massachusetts ID card. And that's important, too.
I think this could be our last little bit of information that, of course, people don't have to have a driver's license.
Right.
You can have
That's right.
an ID, and that's a pretty handy thing to have.
Sure is. It sure is. Yeah,
And it's issued at the registry or online or in the same ways.
you would have to apply for a Mass ID in person at the Registry of Motor Vehicles. Okay, so the initial application for a Mass ID has to be done in person at the Registry of Motor Vehicles. But once you've been issued the ID, the next time it expires, you might even be able to renew it online. You might be able to renew it at AAA. So it all depends. But yeah, it's so important for someone to have a valid form of identification. If you stopped driving years ago and you've let your license expire, you're not going to be able to open up a bank account or apply for housing or even pick up medicine, right? If your driver's license
That's
has
right.
expired.
You have to have a current ID.
You do. You do.
Michelle, I cannot believe that we just blew through my TV show time. So I thank you so much for being here. We're going to have to do another show because I want to hear about what you have to do to get the placards, the disability placards.
Of course.
And that whole realm is another thing.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it was
fun.
fun.
It was fun.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Ta-da.